The first question is from Bharat. What he asks is, don't we draw our attention inwards moments before we fall asleep, where we simply are? Is this not Atma-vichara in a way? So it's a very simple question. The answer is no. What happens when we fall asleep? Because we are too tired to continue projecting this waking state, we cease doing so. In other words, we withdraw our attention from everything else, and thereby we subside in sleep. Withdrawing our attention from other things is not the same as attending to ourself. To the extent to which we attend to ourself, we thereby withdraw our attention from other things. But merely withdrawing our attention from other things doesn't mean that we're attending to ourselves. So it's very important to understand what Bhagavan means by self-investigation or Atma-vichara is being self-attentive, attending only to ourselves. That is, as I say, that is not the same as ceasing to attend to other things. If we cease to attend to other things, we subside in what is called laya, mano-laya. That is a temporary dissolution of mind. The most typical example of mano-laya is sleep. So when we fall asleep, because of tiredness, we're too tired to continue the mental effort of projecting all this waking state in our awareness. So we simply withdraw our attention. By withdrawing our attention, we subside in laya. Why it is necessary to attend to ourself is, that is, mano-laya is a temporary dissolution of mind. Other examples of mano-laya are, sleep is the main example, but other examples are, for example, swoon, coma, general anesthesia, death. Death often results in, well, when the body dies, we can either go into a dreamlike state or we can go straight into a sleep-like state. But these are all temporary dissolution of mind, because ego is a false awareness of ourself. That is, as ego, we're aware of ourselves as I am this person. So we can destroy ego only by being aware of ourselves as we actually are. In order to be aware of ourselves as we actually are, we need to attend to ourselves. Merely withdrawing our attention from other things is not the same as attending to ourselves. This is very important to understand. Bhagavan makes this clear in so many ways. For example, in verse 16 of Upadesha Undiyar, he says, Veli videngale vitu. That means leaving or letting go of external phenomena. In other words, withdrawing our attention from external phenomena, but that is just an adverbial clause. It's a subsidiary clause. The main clause is manam tan ori udru ordale unmei unichiyam. That means the mind knowing its own form of light alone is real awareness, or awareness of the reality. The mind knowing its own form of light, its form of light means it means the fundamental awareness I am. The mind knowing that means we know that by attending to it. So what Bhagavan makes clear there, it is necessary to withdraw our attention from other things, but that is not sufficient. And we need not make an effort to withdraw our attention from other things. In Atma-vichara, our aim is just to attend to ourselves. So whether other things appear or not need not concern us. If we're concerned about the appearance of other things, our attention is on them. So we should ignore all other things, not by trying to ignore them, but by trying to attend only to ourself. The more we focus our attention on ourself, the more it is automatically withdrawn from other things. And so, in order to, uh, as I said, sleep is a state of manolaya. It's a temporary dissolution of mind. The permanent dissolution of mind, the eradication of ego, is what is called manonasa. Manonasa means annihilation of mind. That is brought about only by self-knowledge, Atma-vichara. That means by being aware of ourself as we actually are. And in order to be aware of ourselves as we actually are, we need to attend to ourselves. Otherwise, if simply withdrawing our attention from other things, if that were sufficient, we would attain Atma-vichara when we fall asleep. But we don't, because sleep is just a temporary state, whereas Atma-vichara, or manonasa, this annihilation of mind, is a permanent state. So it's very important to understand this, because when we are trying to practice Atma-vichara, we need to be directing our effort in the correct way. If we think but merely withdrawing our attention from other things is sufficient, that's not the correct way. The only way to bring about the annihilation of ego is to attend to ourself. I hope this is a clear answer to that question. I don't know if Bharat's here today. I think this was actually a question he had asked last month or something. Does anyone have any questions? Was my answer to that question clear?
I don't see anybody's hand.
Okay, well, I will take it, but my answer was clear enough. I hope it was.
Michael, you're so concise in your explanations and your reference back to Ramana always. You're very. Oh, Marty has his hand up.
Okay, Michael, I'm kind of almost embarrassed to ask this question because I think I should know the answer to it. But when you're talking about abiding in the self, is this any different than being aware of our own existence?
No, it's the same.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, because as Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Upadeshandaya, being oneself alone is knowing oneself. That is, ourself is not an object. We can't know ourself as an object. We can know ourself only as ourself, as awareness. So when we are aware of anything other than ourself, that is a mental activity. Our attention is moving away from ourself towards some other thing. We are projecting something in our awareness. So that is a mental activity. But being aware of ourself alone is our natural state of just being. So to put it in another way, what we actually are is pure awareness. Pure awareness can never be an object of awareness. So we can know pure awareness. What knows pure awareness is only pure awareness. So in order to know pure awareness, we need to be pure awareness. So being ourself and knowing ourself are one and the same. So self-abidance is just another name for self-abidance means being what we actually are. Even to say abiding in ourself is not quite correct. It'd be more precise to say abiding as ourself. In other words, abiding as we actually are. And that
So that's
means
why we have to practice this in the awakened state, because it does take effort to be aware, at least initially, to like.
well, we are always aware, but the problem is, because it's a matter of attention. That is, awareness is our very nature. So it's not a matter, it's a matter of when attention is a function of ego. When we rise as ego, we project all this multiplicity. But we can't be equally aware of everything that we've projected. So as ego, we have an ability to focus our awareness, so to speak, on one thing or one set of things. That is what is called attention. It's a focusing of our awareness. So normally, because of our interest in things other than ourselves, our attention is focused outwardly. So though we're always aware I am, we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are, because we cover that awareness of ourselves with awareness of other things. So in order to be aware of ourselves as we actually are, we need to focus our attention on ourself alone. To the extent to which we focus our attention on ourselves, it is thereby withdrawn from other things. And one thing Bhagavan has made very clear, but I don't think has been explained so clearly and explicitly in any of the ancient scriptures or any of the ancient philosophical texts or by any of the ancient sages. What Bhagavan made clear is what is the nature of ego. In verse 25 of Uludunapadu, Bhagavan says he describes ego as a formless demon. The reason he describes it as formless is ego has no form of its own. What ego essentially is just awareness. But as awareness, it's not ego. But if it remains as pure awareness, it's not ego. So ego, as he says there, grasping form, it comes into existence. What he means by that is, as soon as we rise as ego, we project and grasp a body as ourself. We take a body to be ourself. That's what he means in that first sentence by grasping form. Which comes first, the rising of ego or the grasping of a body as I? We can't say they're simultaneous. That is, ego is defined by its nature of grasping form. So he says, grasping form, it comes into existence. Grasping form, it stands. That is, without taking a body to be I, we cannot rise as ego. Without holding on to that body as I, we cannot stand as ego. We cannot endure as ego. And then in the third sentence, he says, grasping and feeding on form, it flourishes abundantly. Grasping and feeding on form means having taken this body to be I, we don't keep our attention on this body. Our attention goes out through the five senses to so many other things. So our attention is constantly on other things. All things other than ourselves are forms. But we ourselves are essentially formless. So ego cannot stand. It cannot rise, it cannot stand, and it cannot flourish or nourish itself without constantly grasping form. That means without constantly attending to things other than itself. So if instead of attending to other things, if ego tries to attend to itself, since it is formless, it by attending to itself, it subsides. Because without holding on to forms, it cannot stand. When it turns its attention back to itself, it subsides. So to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, we thereby subside. And when we subside, what do we subside into? We subside into our being. So that is what is meant by self-abidance. It's that state in which ego has subsided back into the pure being that we actually are. And that is brought about by being self-attentive. Some people, I've heard, some people who who don't have a very deep and clear understanding of Bhagavan's teachings say, but Bhagavan's main teaching is not self-inquiry or self-investigation. It's not Atma-vichara. That's only a secondary teaching. His main teaching is just being. But what they don't understand is how to just be. Just be means not rising as ego. And the only means to just be is by attending to ourself. So just being and Atma-vichara are actually one and the same. Some people say it's another way. They say his main teaching is not Atma-vichara, his main teaching is silence. But what is silence? It's the silence of being. So we can be the silence that we actually are only by attending to ourselves. So Atma-vichara, or self-attentiveness, that is the key to being as we actually are, or abiding as ourself. Is that a clear answer?
Oh, that's very clear. And when I think about when I first started this, one of the first things I read was "Who am I?" And in there, when he's asking what is the self or the nature of the self, the answer was Satchitananda, which is exactly what you just talked about.
Yeah. Well, actually, the first question that Sri Pillai asked was, "Who am I?" To which Bhagavan's answer was, Arivenan. That means awareness alone is I. And then the second question is, what is the nature of that awareness? And Bhagavan's answer was Satchitananda. Shiva Prakashan Pillai later, for his own clarification, he added in this neti explanation to Bhagavan's answer to his first question. But that was only for his own clarification. But when Bhagavan saw that, at first he said, "Oh, I didn't say that." But then he said, "Oh, he would have added that for his clarification, let it remain." So even when Bhagavan wrote it in an essay form, he retained that portion which Shiva Prakashan Pillai had added for his own clarification. But Bhagavan's actual answer wasn't even neti. It was simply, he gave a straight answer to a straight question. Who am I? Awareness alone is I. And that awareness, the nature of that awareness is Satchitananda.
Thank you, Michael.
Right.
I've heard it described as ego being a parasitic activity, and that seems to be how ego assumes our identification.
Yes, but I wouldn't even say it's a parasitic activity.
Okay.
It is a parasite, we can say. The activity comes, because it's a parasite, its activity is parasitic. So in other words, it depends on things other than itself. But those
Exactly.
things, what it depends upon, though those things are other than itself, they are projected by itself. That is, this body and the world have no existence independent of ego. So as soon as we rise as ego, we project a body that we experience as I, and through the five senses of the body, we project this world.
And it convinces us that it is us.
Yes. Just like in dream. In dream, the body we experience as I, in dream, seems to be every bit as much ourselves as this body now seems to be. And the world we experience in dream, while we're dreaming, it seems to be every bit as real as this world seems to be. However seemingly absurd what we experience in a dream may seem to be, it still seems to be very real. The reason is because what is actually real is only ourself. So long as we identify ourselves as a body, that body therefore seems to be real. Because we're real, if the body is ourself, then the body is real. And the body is a small part of the universe, of the world. So the world we experience through the current body always seems to be real. But as soon as we wake up from a dream, our identification with the dream body is severed. We no longer experience that dream body as ourselves, and we immediately recognize, oh, it was just a dream, it wasn't real. So
The illusion.
yes. So Bhagavan said this waking world is just as unreal as the world we experience in a dream. So should we go on to the next question?
Well,
Leanne has her
Leanne?
hand up. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You just said, no, I forgot it already again. It's just as if in a dream, no? Just as a dream.
That is, this, the world we experience in dream seems to be just as real as this world now seems to be. But this world is as unreal as that world in dream. Now while we're dreaming, the world in dream seems to be very real. When we wake up, we are one, because we have ceased to identify that dream body as I. As soon as we cease to identify that dream body as I, we recognize, oh, it was just a dream, it wasn't real. But so long as we took that green dream body to be I, it all seemed to be very real. That's why people who have near-death experiences, they often come back and they say, that state was more real than this. When I was in that state, this all seemed just like a dream. Because in that state, they weren't identified with this body, they were identified with some other dream body.
Yes. Yeah, I can speak now with the full moon. I have really real dreams and they appear so real, fully
Yes,
in
yes.
and I don't dream much anymore. But just sometimes, about the terms we speak, reality versus illusion, illusion versus reality. And sometimes, and I don't know if it's still a notion of the ego, but sometimes I just feel like, can it even be described? Has it to be named? Literary illusion. There's also the saying from India. No, they say you wake up from Maya, which is actually the separation, no, the ego separation, and then you are in Lila, which is more or less like, okay, now you know what you are, the awareness. As the awareness, now you still experience a world, but it's not called world anymore because it's all yourself, right?
Well, people understand this differently. Actually, according to Bhagavan, when we wake up, when we know ourselves as we actually are, it's like waking up from a dream. We will no longer, when we wake up from a dream, we don't continue to experience the dream. So the dream comes to an end. When the dreamer comes to an end, the dream comes to an end along with it. The dreamer is ego.
Yeah, but the body is still here. I mean,
The body is still here in whose view? For example, Bhagavan. We say Bhagavan has a body, Bhagavan has a mind. Because not now, but in those who were present during his bodily lifetime, they saw him walking around, they saw him cutting vegetables, answering questions, writing poetry, all these things. So obviously he's got a body, and also he must have a mind in order to do all these things. But when people asked Bhagavan about this, he said, in whose view? It's all in our view that he seems to be a body. He said, because you mistake yourself to be a body, you take me to be this body. But Bhagavan's experience of himself is not, I am this body. His experience of himself was, I am I.
I mean, I know from experience, direct experience, not continuously, there were these moments where I looked, let's say, at seemingly a person, and it was mainly through eye contact. And then suddenly it was like the form was dissolving and I was just the empty space. Yeah. So I know that, that there is no form, but it's not my continuous experience. And I'm just asking again because, yeah, the terms illusion and reality sometimes appear, I don't know, in a sense of this, it's a mystery. Sometimes when I just look at the world, how can this come about? Everything, the elements, and like everything works together. In a sense, it's also a huge miracle. Everything, all the tiniest insect and all the different species. Sometimes just wonder. I mean, I don't think so much in things of creator either, but I mean, there must be intelligence, something behind it. It's not just like randomly. I just don't feel like, oh, it just happened all randomly somehow. So, and it's just an illusion,
But yeah, what gives reality to that world? We say the world is real because it's continuous, because it's coherent, all these things. But actually, what gives reality to to the world is ourself, because we identify with this body. And through this body, we experience the world. Because the body seems to us to be ourself and therefore real, the world seems to be real.
Yes, but sometimes from direct experience, I see there's not really the separate I playing here. And then still with the senses, they're like heightened senses, and you see the majesty of a tree or anything of nature, and it's just like, oh, and it's more like you are the whole space, all it, but
Yes.
it's like majesty. So what is that then? What is this still? It's also still part of an illusion then, or?
It is.
Yeah.
Another thing to understand in this context, in Vedanta and in Bhagavan's teachings, when we talk about real, what is meant by real is what actually exists. When we talk about unreal or illusion, that is what doesn't actually exist, but merely seems to exist. So the dream world doesn't actually exist except in our mind. So the dream world, we all agree the dream world is unreal. But according to Bhagavan, this world is as unreal as the dream world. Because one of the defining, there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita that summarizes one of the fundamental principles of Vedanta. What that is in chapter 2, verse 16, Krishna says, there is no existence of the non-existent, and there's no non-existent of the existent. What that means is, Bhagavan explained it in a very simple way. He said, if something exists at one time, but not at another time, it doesn't actually exist even when it seems to exist. So, in other words, permanence, being eternal, is the mark of reality. Anything that is impermanent is not real. There's a philosophical explanation for this. That is, if something is inherently existent, intrinsically existent, it must always exist. If something doesn't always exist, it's not intrinsically existent. We can understand this with an analogy. For example, if you boil a potato, the potato is hot. But though it is hot, it's not intrinsically hot. It's not always hot. So because it's not intrinsically hot, it's borrowed its heat from some other source. So from where did it get its heat? It got its heat from the boiling water. And the boiling water, that is hot because it's boiling, but water is not intrinsically hot. So it has derived its heat from some other source. It derived its heat from the pan. And the pan is not intrinsically hot. It derived its heat from fire. Fire is intrinsically hot because whenever you've got fire, you've got heat. So that analogy is used to clarify the distinction between what is intrinsic and what is borrowed. So if something doesn't always exist, it's not intrinsically existent. So it borrows its existence from something else. So all this world seems to exist, but it doesn't always exist. So from where does it borrow its existence? It borrows its existence, it derives its existence from ego, because it's only in the view of ego that the world seems to exist. But even ego is not, it doesn't always exist. It appears in waking and dream, it disappears in sleep. So ego is also unreal. So from what does ego derive its existence? It derives its existence from the real existence of our self as Satchit, as pure being awareness. So ultimately only that Satchit is real. Satchit Ananda, which are not three things, it's one thing. Three words describing the one thing, that is what actually exists is awareness, and it is intrinsically happy.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple hands still, Michael.
Okay, right.
Sri Ram and then Margot. Sri Ram, you want to come in?
Yes, Michael, awesome. Really, really grateful to you. You explained something very, very beautifully, elegantly, as you always do. You mentioned that the ego comes into existence grasping form, and then it thrives and flourishes, keep on grasping form. So, and you mentioned that as long as in dream, the body, as long as you attach to the dream body, the dream worlds exist. When you wake up, the
Seems
dream
to
body
exist, seems to be
exist,
real.
right? Of course. And when you wake up, the dream body is gone, and so is the dream world. So it looks to me like the fundamental point, the root, is the grasping of the body by the so-called phantom ego.
Yeah, that is the
So,
very nature of ego, is to grasp a body as I.
right. So if we can focus on that, then instead of worrying about the world, we focus on us being so deha buddhi, feel like we are this body, mind, intellect. And once we can get rid of that notion, then the world will automatically dissolve in the waking state.
Yes. And
Right.
in order to get rid of that, what we need to hold on to is I. That is,
Right.
ego is an adjunct conflated awareness. It's I am this body. If we hold on to the I am alone, by holding on to I am, to the extent to which we hold on to I am, we are thereby letting go of other things. The body is not holding on to us. We are holding on to the body. Bhagavan
Right.
used to say, everyone complains that they're in bondage and they want liberation. They want freedom from bondage. But what is binding us? He gave an analogy. He said it's like a person standing on the ground holding a branch above their head. And when a passerby asks, why are you holding on to the branch? If I let go, I'll fall down. But the passerby says, you're standing on solid ground. Let go of the branch and you're not going to fall. You're on solid ground. So it's our bondage. We ourselves are binding ourselves we have bound ourselves to this body. So if we hold on to ourselves, we will thereby let go of the body will drop down. That is, the body, the false identification, I am this body, will drop down, and we will remain as the pure I.
It's awesome. So you mentioned something that what doesn't have a beginning, what doesn't have a beginning, so what has a beginning and an end doesn't have the middle, kind of the verse
No,
16.
whatever has a beginning and an end,
Is not for me,
it didn't exist before its beginning. It
right?
doesn't exist after its end. So
And
it
doesn't
only
exist now,
seems to exist in the middle.
right?
But the fact that it doesn't always exist means, as Bhagavan says, it doesn't actually exist even when it seems to exist.
Right. So is there like a movie in a movie? For example, we think that the ego is real, and then we think that the world is real. The
No,
world then,
it's not like that. We don't think that the ego is real. Ego is, we now experience ourselves as ego. Ego has a real element and an unreal element. The real element, the ego is called Chit Jata Granti. The knot binds Chit and Jata together. The Chit element of ego is the awareness I am. That is what is real. The Jada element, Jada means what is not aware. You know that, but in others who may not know that. So the Jada element is this body. So the ego has an element of reality. It's real as I am. It's unreal as this this conflation. I am this body. So all we need to do is to hold on to the real element, namely I am, and the unreal element will drop off by its own accord.
like I have this hypothetical
That's
question.
why I said earlier, it's not sufficient just to withdraw our attention from other things. We need to hold on to self-attentiveness. We need to attend to ourselves.
You mentioned this that Bhagavan seemed like a body because we think we are the body.
Yes.
What hypothetically, when Bhagavan would see, say, another sage like Murugana,
Yeah.
what would they see each other? Are you able to kind of explain that?
Bhagavan only ever sees one thing. He sees himself. In Bhagavan's view, there's no difference between Murugana and you. Because in Bhagavan's view, he sees us all as himself. That is why Bhagavan had equal love for all. For the saint and the sinner, Bhagavan's love is equal. Because he doesn't see us as a saint or a sinner, he sees us as we actually are, namely as himself. Because he sees us, because he knows us as himself, he loves us as himself.
Mm.
In the Bible it is said, love thy neighbor as thyself. But how can you love your neighbor as yourself so long as you know your neighbor is other than yourself? In order to love your neighbor as yourself, you need to know your neighbor as yourself.
That is so beautiful.
So Bhagavan, in Bhagavan's view, there is only himself. What we see as this world full of many different jivas, many different sentient beings, in Bhagavan's view, the whole thing is just himself. What we see as many, he sees as one. What we see as other than ourselves, he sees as himself.
Now, on a Vyavaharik level, practical level, he would talk to Ganapati Muni as Ganapati Muni and Murugana as Murugana.
Who would talk? Who would talk? The body that we take to be Bhagavan would talk.
Yes.
But he's not that body. But that doesn't mean that we disrespect that body, because what is shining through that body, that is the Supreme Lord of the whole universe. That is God, Guru, whatever you want to call it. That's our own reality. What we actually are, that is what we see shining through Bhagavan. That is why everyone is attracted to Bhagavan. But very few see Bhagavan as he sees himself. In order to see Bhagavan as he sees himself, we need to see ourselves as we actually are. Then we see Bhagavan as he actually is. And that is also why everyone has a different view of Bhagavan. When I first came to Tiruvannamalai, that was in 1976, at that time there were still many, many people who had been with Bhagavan. Some of them had lived with Bhagavan 30, 40 years. But everyone will have a different view of Bhagavan. If you mention a story that you heard from one devotee, another devotee say, no, it wasn't like that. I was there. It was like this. Because everyone is interpreting in their own way. The reason for that is, Bhagavan himself said, the jnani is like a mirror. So when you come in front of a mirror, what do you see? You see a reflection of yourself. So what we see in Bhagavan is our real self, but covered over by the false self. But so we are all seeing Bhagavan through colored glasses, as it were. So everyone sees Bhagavan in their own way. To see him as he actually is, we need to see ourselves as he sees us, which is as himself. When we know ourselves as we actually are, then only will we know Bhagavan as he actually is.
So, Michael, if you recall, Perumal Swami was fighting with Bhagavan, and he had filed a lawsuit with Bhagavan. He
Yes.
wanted to be Sarvadhikari. But then at the end, Bhagavan was so loving to him.
Bhagavan was
so,
not at the end, but
Yeah.
all the time Bhagavan was
Of
loving
course.
to him.
right.
And though he was fighting these cases for so many years, but when Bhagavan passed away, when Bhagavan left the body, Perumal Swami lost all his supporters. It was no longer interesting for people who were supporting him for their own entertainment or whatever. They no longer supported him. Then he began to reflect on his own, on all that had happened. And in the 1950s, from 1955 to the early 1960s, Sadhu Om was living in the ashram, in Ramana Ashram. And while he was there, he was doing service in so many ways. He was helping with the editing and proofreading all the Tamil books and things. So he's helping with literary things. In the morning, he'd pluck flowers along with the Veda Pathasala boys for Bhagavan's puja. So many things he was doing. Among other things, he was trained by the doctor, Dr. Shiva Rao, who there's a dispensary in the ashram since Bhagavan's days, where poor people can come and have free medicine. So Dr. Shiva Rao trained him as his compounder. That is, he was the one who would, Dr. Shiva Rao would prescribe the medicine, and Sadhu Om would be the one who would dispense the medicine. And so one day, Perumal Swami came there. And by that time, he was old, and he'd lost all his friends and everything. And while he was there, he started talking to Sadhu Om. And he said, I am such a fool. I have wasted my life. Because of my greed to be the manager of the ashram, it blinded me. And so I went the wrong way. But I now understand what Bhagavan said to me one day. That is, one day when one of the court cases, Perumal Swami had lost the court case. And so he came to the ashram and he said to Bhagavan, don't think that you're going to, you don't think I'm going to leave you. You may have won this court case, but I'm going to take it to a higher court. I'm going to, if necessary, I'll take it to the highest court in the land. I will not leave you. Even if you're God and you put me in hell, I will not leave you. And Bhagavan said, even if you go to hell, I will not leave you.
Oh my God.
Perumal Swami at that time, he took that as a challenge. Because he was challenging Bhagavan. So when Bhagavan said, even if you go to hell, I will not leave you, he took it as Bhagavan is an adversary. But he told Sadhu Om, now I understand what he meant. How gracious is Bhagavan. But he said, even if I go to hell because of my sins, I know Bhagavan has assured me he will not leave me. He will definitely save me.
Pure love.
Pure love, pure love. So Bhagavan's love is equal to all. Saint or sinner, rich or poor, human or any species. Bhagavan has equal love for all. Young or old, male or female. For Bhagavan, these differences don't exist because he sees us as the one reality, which is himself.
That's so beautiful. And that's the
And
goal of
this
our life.
is non-dual. This
Yes,
is
it is no
non-duality.
that is no, that alone is non-duality. If we see anything other, then we've got duality. But for Bhagavan, there was no other.
So beautiful.
Many people who don't have a deep understanding, they say love requires two. You can't have love without two. So that's one of the arguments people give for dualistic theologies. But only if God is other than yourself, you can love him. They all overlook the simple fact that Bhagavan points out in the first sentence of Nana, which is that we all have greatest love for ourselves. However much we love others, we love them because we love them for our own sake. If someone is very kind to us, always helping us and everything, we naturally love that person. If someone is giving us trouble, we naturally dislike that person. So ultimately what we love most of all is ourselves. So if we want to have, so long as we see God as other than ourselves, the love we have for God is partial. If we want to have full 100% love for God, we need to know God as ourselves. Then only we love him fully. And then only are we loving our neighbor as ourselves.
So
Love
Michael,
the Lord thy God and your neighbor as yourself. That's exactly what Bhagavan has exemplified that.
So Michael, that famous sentence, Atmanasta kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati, meaning for the sake of our own love, all things become dear.
Exactly.
Does it really mean to me, I'm just asking you, whether does it mean that our nature itself is love?
Yes.
So that love is automatically non-dual. Such as
Yes,
Ananda. So Ananda, you can replace Ananda with love.
That is, Bhagavan also says in that first sentence of Nana, he says, Priyataku sukame karnamadalalam. Since happiness alone is the cause for love, because our real nature is infinite happiness, we have infinite love for ourselves. Happiness and love actually are one and the same thing. In the state of duality, they seem to be two different things, but when we know ourselves as we actually are, we will know we have a fullness of happiness, infinite happiness and infinite love. That's why Bhagavan, one of the verses in Aksharammalai, verse 101, I think, Ambu Vilalipol Amburu Vunilene Anbai Karitaralanachala. Bhagavan sings, like ice in water, melt me as love in you, the form of love. What is the substance of the ocean? It's water. What is the substance of the iceberg? It's water. They're the same substance. It's only because of a frozen state where the iceberg seems to be something separate from the ocean. Likewise, we seem to be separate because of our frozen condition. So we need to melt with love and lose ourselves in him, the infinite ocean of love. Because he is our own reality.
Wow. So beautiful.
Just like the water of the ocean is the reality of the iceberg, Bhagavan is the reality of ourself. So it's only by losing ourself in love for him that we can know ourselves as we actually are.
And
you very much,
Michael, can
Yes.
we now move on to Margot? She's been
Yes.
waiting
Yes.
so
Yes.
patiently.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael, for all of your time and your beautiful answers to clarify his work. It's so helpful. I'm so grateful for you. My question that is sort of confusing me is if there is only one reality, and that is God, or consciousness, whatever you want to call it, very
Yeah.
difficult to explain, you can't,
Yeah.
then all of this in terms of everything else is form, is an illusion. And so it's not real. So in other words, it doesn't exist, which means that it never existed, correct?
Yes.
So if that's true, then this conversation that we're having, none of it ever actually occurred. So even this concept of becoming liberated is also dual in nature, right? I remember reading something where
Yes. Yes.
we're not in bondage, right? We're not.
Bhagavan has indicated this very clearly in Upadesha Undiyar, verse 29. Banda vidatra parasakamutrava inda nirnay tralundi para, irepani nitrala mundi para. That means being in this state of supreme bliss, which is devoid of bondage and liberation, is being in the service of God.
But I guess what confuses
So
me,
there he clearly indicates devoid of bondage and liberation. That is, liberation seems real so long as we seem to be in bondage.
right?
But when we free ourselves from bondage, we will find that we are eternally liberated,
That we were never in bondage.
never in bondage.
So that's what is confusing is as that pure awareness, what is it that I am experiencing? How is it even possible that I'm experiencing this dream?
As pure awareness, you are never experiencing anything other than pure awareness. But now you seem to be that pure awareness mixed and conflated with Margot. So you're experiencing yourself as if you're Margot. So long as you experience yourself as if you're Margot, all this seemed as if it's real. If you investigate the I that is now aware of itself as I am Margot, you will find this. What actually is there is only pure awareness. And therefore, this ego that now experiences itself as I am Margot never actually existed.
What's interesting when I do focus on myself as awareness, there are no thoughts. The thoughts just disappear. It's very strange. And then
Thoughts
in a
seem to exist when we look away from ourselves. When we look at ourselves, where are any thoughts?
Yeah, it's incredible. And then there's no it's as if reality does shift to this to just being aware of myself as awareness and everything else falls away. And the others
But actually, it's not the reality that shifts. Everything else shifts away, and the reality alone remains.
right. So there's always, yeah, that's the only thing that's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's incredible.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Marco. And one question or comment pops up a couple more. Is that satisfactory, Marco?
Yeah, it is. It's a incredible this work is so piercing and it's an incredible depth of truth that I've just, yeah, it's incredible. There are no words.
There are no words, yes.
Indescribable.
It is.
Okay, thank you, Marco. and Olena.
Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Thank you very much for everything that you do, first of all. And I would like to ask about your last story about Bhagavan that you mentioned. I unfortunately forgot name of this person who
Paramaswamy.
wanted. Yes, thank you. Who wanted to take him to the highest court. And I heard before this story, of course, but somehow for the first time now I noticed that this was interesting case when Bhagavan sort of showed his kind of authority when he said that I will be with you even if you go to hell. So I mean that as if he himself at that moment recognized his the purest divine nature, and I mean it's interesting. What would you say about that? How would you comment on that? Because I mean normally, for example, people could come to him with big griefs, with their big problems, and asked Bhagavan to solve those problems, and he would just sit in without no reaction because he knew that everything that is happening, it is something that God knows better.
Yes.
What we have to go through for our own benefit.
Yes.
But in that case, he kind of showed
Sometimes
his
he
power.
let his mask slip. Sometimes he exposed himself, what he really is. He is that eternal reality. He is our own self. So how can he ever leave us? Whether we're in heaven or hell, he is always our own reality. He is
Michael,
that which
exactly.
is shining in our heart as I.
Exactly. It's interesting. I mean, this was a kind of another lesson, another way to tell us that our own I, it cannot leave us.
No.
Wherever we are. I mean,
yes.
And he just, but it was, I mean, in appearance, it was absolutely beautifully, I mean,
yes.
done, of course. And and plus, it's very important even for us, to, like people who are not in the, I mean, in our situation, that someone with such like great authority for us anyway, he himself tells such things. It's a very big assurance. I mean, it is something
that is what he as Perumal Swami didn't understand at the time, but as Perumal came to understand many years later, those were words of supreme compassion and supreme assurance.
Yeah, exactly. It's very beautiful, of course. And another thing that I thought about that case at that moment when we were describing it, is that this is what we don't have actually, and I hope we will have it someday. But I mean, that now we are missing that thing, that being in such our normal state, let's call it like that, it is absolutely relaxed, absolutely firm. I mean, there is no disturbance at this point anymore. I mean that he, for example, if we imagine someone on Bhagavan's place, when someone is coming to us and saying that we are going to take you into the highest court and you will be punished and so on and so forth, and someone is going to actually take this case to the very end when we are punished, let's call it like that. But we are absolutely not disturbed by that at all. And moreover, we are showing such a grace. We are just telling to someone who is going to do this, we are just telling, that's okay. I will be. I mean, that's good. I mean, it's okay. Everything is okay, and I will. It's like it's almost like to say, okay, I'm completely with you. I'm with you. Yes, do it. I mean, I will be. I will not leave you. It's amazing. I mean that this is what we are all searching for.
But what is also very, very significant about that story that is, those words Bhagavan said had a very deep meaning at several levels. At one level, we can say, yes, Bhagavan is our own self, so how can he ever leave us? That's one way of, I mean, that's also true, but it's also true that Bhagavan is the very embodiment of supreme love, infinite love. So he will never abandon us. However, in Nana he says, however great a sinner one may be, if one puts aside the thought one is a sinner and holds on to self-attentiveness, if one gives up the thought of one is a sinner and gives up lamenting, oh, I'm a sinner, how am I going to be saved? If one just holds on to self-attentiveness, one will surely be saved. So for Bhagavan, sin and virtue count for nothing. His love transcends all these differences. So he's equally kind, equally loving, and he will equally save the sinner as much as he will save the saint. So
exactly, yes.
But another very significant thing about that story is, though Paramaswamy, because of his state of mind at the time, he couldn't understand the significance of Bhagavan's words. Bhagavan is there in his heart, slowly, by changing the external circumstances and everything, he made him finally understand what he meant by those words. That's what Paramaswamy made clear to Sadhu Om. But Bhagavan had made him understand the real significance of those words. And that Bhagavan he made Paramaswamy understand that what he had said was not a challenge, it was the supreme assurance.
Yes, it was kind of supreme lesson.
Yes.
It's interesting also that, I mean, it's to put it in other words, I mean that it was interesting that this Swami had to go through such calamities to get this information, let's call it information or assurance, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we can conclude from that sometimes Bhagavan puts us into situations when we have to become big sinners because it was such a big sin, because for us it's even difficult to imagine that you can come to someone like Bhagavan and tell him that I'm going to take you to some court. And it is such a horrible thing if you imagine that. And this Swami had to go through this and then realize, I can imagine how big shock he received, I mean, from that he told. But what I want to say that yes, love, but the thing is that this we have, I mean, it just proves that we already and always have this real, I mean, our normal real nature with us. And that is why right now, for example, we can already be 100% like relaxed, like Bhagavan, for example, and be sure that all is well, all is okay, and there is nothing to worry about at all. I mean, at all, because he in this situation, when someone was threatening him with such things, he was absolutely, completely sure that everything is okay. And he never even thought that he was some kind of authority, because, for example, some management part of this ashram, they were authorities rather than him. He was just, he didn't even, he had anything to do with, nothing to do with these authorities. Whatever, I mean, he was not authority there. So,
what happened was he tried, before Skandashram, there was no such thing as an ashram. Bhagavan was living in Virupaksha cave. A few sadhus were living along with him. Then this Kandaswami built this Skandashram, and at about the same time Bhagavan's mother came. Prior to Bhagavan's mother coming, there was never any cooking. Sometimes devotees would bring food and cook it there, but there was no regular cooking. They were all living on begged food. But once it came to Skandashram, then the regular cooking started and everything. And Perumal Swami was there at that time. So he took upon himself the role of manager. But he started bossing over people, which people didn't like. And so people wanted to get rid of him. And at one time he complained to Bhagavan that all these people are opposing me and everything. I'm just trying to do service to you, and these people are opposing me. I don't know exactly what he was saying, but Bhagavan said to him, "You are all full of I and mine. I came here all the way from Madurai to get away from this I and mine." So Bhagavan,
Yes.
then itself, he was giving him a teaching.
Yeah,
Leave
yeah, of course.
aside this I am mine. If you want to be happy, if you want to be contented, stop. What's it matter who is managing the ashram? Bhagavan didn't say that, but the implication is, what's it matter whether you're managing or someone else is managing? Is that what you've come here for? We've come here to be free of this I am mine. And only by being free of I am mine will we be happy.
Yes, and this is always this fight with everything that this world suggests. I mean, to put everything from your feet to your hand. I mean, head.
Yes.
I mean that it's to distort everything. Yeah, of course, he was the only normal person. I mean, of course, not person, but quite normal one among other people. So,
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much.
Right.
It was very, very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helena. And we have still another couple hands, Michael. Tina is next. Tina, can you unmute? There you are.
Yeah, I've got it. Thank you. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Michael, I have a question about the doer.
Yes.
Like, I am not the doer. So is
Yes.
that, I mean, I never understood it. And I was reading yesterday Sadhu's reminiscence with Alan Chadwick.
Yes.
And he's talking about not the doer of the thoughts. Is that what it is?
So long as we now identify ourselves with this body, what Bhagavan means by body, as he clarified in Nuludu Napadu, is not just this physical body, it's all the five sheaths. The five sheaths are this physical body, the life that animates it. The physical body is called Annamaya Kosha, the sheath composed of food. The life that animates it, that's called Pranamaya Kosha, the sheath composed of life, of prana. The mind, which is called Manamaya Kosha, that's referring to all the grosser aspects of the mind. The intellect, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, or Buddhi, finally the will, which is called the Anandamaya Kosha, or the Karana Sarira, the causal body, or the Chittam. Chittam means will. So when we experience this body as I, we never experience a dead body as I. It's always a living body. So along with the body, we experience the life. And we also never experience a sleeping body as I. It's always a body that seems to be awake. Even the dream body seems to be awake when we're dreaming. So along with the body and the life, there's mind, intellect, and will. So we always experience these five collectively as ourself. That's what Bhagavan refers to when he says, the ego is that which is aware of itself as I am this body. The body refers to all these five. So the instruments of action are the physical body, are the mind, the speech, and the physical body. These are all part of the five sheaths. So long as we rise as ego, we experience ourselves as this body of mind. And consequently, whatever actions are done by the mind, whatever actions are done by the speech, whatever actions are done by the body are experienced by us as I am doing it. I am thinking. I am speaking. I am sitting, I'm standing, I'm running, whatever. So we identify ourselves with all these things, but none of these things are what we actually are. So long as we rise as ego, we experience ourselves as the doer. If we want to give up doership, we have to give up ego. We have to give up identifying ourselves with these instruments of action. What is actually doing the actions is the mind, the speech, and the body. But because we identify ourselves with these, we experience in them as I am doing this.
Okay.
Is that clear?
It is clear.
Yeah.
I finally realized it yesterday, and now you're here like
Yeah.
clarifying that again. So it's
Yes.
perfect because it
Yes.
took me a long time to understand it.
And it's often said in bhakti traditions, it's often said that God is the doer of everything. So we have to surrender ourselves to God. What that means is now when we experience ourselves as I am the doer, but that we are usurping what everything is actually happening, as Bhagavan says in the 13th paragraph of Nana, since one Parameshwara Shakti means it can be interpreted in two ways that mean the same. Ishwara means God. It also means the ruler. So Parameshwara Shakti can mean the supreme ruling power or the supreme power of God. That one Parameshwara Shakti is driving all karyas. All karyas means everything that's meant to happen, everything that ought to happen, everything that we're meant to do, everything we ought to do. He is making it all happen. So if we give up this identification with the body, then everything will be going on in accordance with his will. The problem is when we rise as ego, we have a will of our own. We can never what that is, his will alone is what is going to happen. But that doesn't stop us trying to make things happen. So this is what Bhagavan implies in the note he wrote for his mother. He says in the first sentence, he says, in accordance with the prarabdha of each one, he who is for that, being there, will cause to dance. Literally, that's a literal meaning. According to the prarabdha, in accordance with the prarabdha of each one, prarabdha means the destiny. That is the fruit of our past actions that God has allotted for us to experience in this lifetime. He who is for that means God, the one who has allotted the fruit. And being there means being in every place, being omnipresent. And it also means being in the heart of each one of us. So from within our heart, he will make us act in accordance with our destiny. That is, whatever destiny determines what we are to experience. In order to experience that, there's certain actions on our part are necessary. For example, supposing, just to take a simple example, supposing your destiny is to be a doctor. In order to be a doctor, you have to study, you have to pass exams and everything. So since it's your destiny to be a doctor, you'll be driven to do that. So whatever actions are necessary for the unfoldment of our destiny, we will be made to act accordingly. However, that doesn't mean that all the actions we do are actions that he's making us do. Because if all our actions are actions he's making us do, then who should experience the fruit of those actions? He should experience the fruit of them. So, but the destiny is the fruit of actions that we have done. So what does that mean? What it means is, that is, we are free to, we are not free to change what is destined to happen. We cannot experience anything that we're not destined to experience, and we cannot avoid experiencing what we are destined to experience. But we are free to want to experience things that are not destined, and we're free to try to experience it. We're free to want to avoid what is destined, and we're free to try. That's what he makes clear in the next two sentences. In the second sentence, he says, what will never happen will not happen in spite of any amount of effort. That implies what is destined to happen is going to happen. We cannot change it. Well, he said what is not destined to happen is not going to happen. How we can want it to happen. I can want to be the President of the United States. I can try to become the President of the United States. I can try and become an American citizen, and then I can try and change the law so that, though I wasn't born American, but the law is changed, but non-naturalized Americans, I can make all that effort, but if I'm not destined to be President of the United States, I'm not going to be President of the United States. And then in the next sentence he says, what will happen will not stop in spite of any amount of obstacle. So if I'm destined to live in poverty all my life, I'm going to live in poverty all my life. I cannot change that. But that doesn't stop me wanting to be rich. It doesn't stop me trying to be rich. So we have freedom of will and we have freedom of action, but we have no freedom with regard to what we experience. What we are destined to experience is what we're going to experience. So though he is the ultimate doer, he's making everything happen as it's meant to happen, but that doesn't mean that we don't have freedom of will or don't have freedom of action. We do have freedom of will. We can want anything we want. It doesn't mean we're going to get it, but we can want it and we can try for it. But it's not going to happen if it's not destined to happen. So because we are constantly doing actions in accordance with our will, those actions we do in accordance with our will bear fruit. But that fruit gets stored in what is called the sanchita. That's the store of all the fruits of past actions. And for each lifetime, God selects which fruit of our past actions will be most beneficial for us to experience in this lifetime. So Bhagavan sometimes used to say, whether you call it prarabdha, destiny, or call it God's will, it's the same thing. Because though what we experience as prarabdha is the fruit of our past actions, we've done so many actions in the past. Why are we now experiencing these good or bad fruit? It's because he has allotted it. So ultimately, whatever happens is his will. So if we are on the path of devotion, our aim is to surrender ourselves to God. So if we want to surrender ourselves to God, the first thing we have to surrender is our will. If we have likes and dislikes that are opposed to his will, how can we be said to be surrendered? So on the path of bhakti, the first thing we try to surrender our will to the will of God. That is absolutely necessary, because so long as we have a strong will of our own, we're not going to surrender. However, we can only surrender our will to a certain extent. So long as we remain as ego, we will inevitably have, to a greater or lesser extent, we'll have likes and dislikes. We'll have desires and attachments. We can reduce the strength of our will, of our desires, attachments, hopes, fears, and so on, but we cannot get rid of them entirely so long as the root remains. The root is ego. Whose will is it? It's ego's will. So ultimately, the surrender can become complete only by surrendering ego. And since the nature of ego is to rise, stand, and flourish by grasping other things, in other words, by attending to things other than itself, but to subside by attending to itself, the only way to surrender ourselves completely is by self-investigation, by attending to ourselves. Because to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, we thereby subside. That subsidence is surrender. So the path of surrender begins with devotion to an external God, that is a form of God. So taking God to be something other than ourselves. But as the surrender matures, it finally comes to this recognizing that God is, who is this I other than him? How can I be, he is the infinite whole, how can I be anything other than him? So this rising as a separate I, this is the root of all sins. Bhagavan said, this is the original sin. The rising of ego, that is the original sin. So we need to give up this original sin by not rising as I, not rising as ego. In order to stop rising as ego, we need to investigate ourselves. So Bhagavan's path, which is often considered to be the path of jnana, it is the path of jnana, but it's also the pinnacle of the path of devotion. Is that a clear answer?
It is. I could keep talking to you, but I won't. I'll leave you to speak to other people. Thank
Right.
you so much, Michael.
Right.
Thank you, Tina. And my goodness, we have a lot of hands, Michael.
Right.
Y'all, you're next, honey.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Okay. So my friend has a question. He doesn't have internet, so he's on speakerphone listening, and he's gonna say his question. Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Right.
Michael, thank you so much. I'm always listening in and reading your books. Thank you so much for explaining us and your kindness, giving us your time to explain and to teach us Bhagavan's teachings. Thank you so much. I would like to ask you one question. In the beginning, earlier, you explained our love to Bhagavan, and it made perfectly sense because we love, like he said, he writes in the first verse, but we love ourselves the most. And if we get to our awareness, he is there. That's one thing, no duality. So we love him because it's one thing. It's the pure awareness. My question is, even when we're not on that stage of pure awareness, when we do have the ego, we do have the I, when we're not so good, and we're on irregular times, we still have many times that unbelievable love to Bhagavan. We feel like we just can't thank him enough for his grace over us and for his teachings and whatever. And we really feel like overwhelming by the love that we have. But that's not like because the same way we love ourselves, because it's not when we are in that stage of pure awareness, when we are in the dream. Even when we're on the dream, regular middle of the day, we still could stop thinking about it and just like want to dance for him, right? And thank him. What's that from? Is that okay? Is it reality or is it okay?
That is, Bhagavan is our own reality. He's what we actually are. But so long as we rise as ego, we have seemingly separated ourselves from the reality that we actually are. So Bhagavan seems to be other than ourselves. So though he is actually our own reality, we love him as if he were other than ourselves. So that love is imperfect love. We can love him as ourself only when we know him as ourself. So whatever love we now have for Bhagavan is a partial love. It's not the full love. That's why Bhagavan prayed in that verse that I referred to earlier. He prays to Arunachala, melt me like ice in water, melt me as love in you, the form of love. Of course, Bhagavan he's not praying on his own behalf. He's praying from the standpoint of a spiritual aspirant. So the love we have for him now is imperfect because we see him as something other than ourselves and therefore love him as something other than ourselves. But this love needs to mature into the full blossoming of love. The melting of the ice in water is when this ego dissolves back into our being. Our being is what he actually is. We need to dissolve in him.
And is that okay? That means why we have him premature love.
We cannot love him perfectly so long as we experience ourselves as something separate. So we love him to the extent that we can. And even this love that we have for him, from where does this love come? It comes only from him. He is the one, by his grace, he has sown this seed of love in our heart. Because the nature of ego is to always go outwards, grasping form. So the love to turn within and surrender ourselves completely, that love is not natural to ego. It's natural to our reality, to what we actually are. So it is from him, by his grace, that we have this love. And this love, we need to cultivate this love until it becomes so all-consuming that we become willing to surrender ourselves completely. And we can surrender ourselves completely, as I say, only by investigating ourselves, by turning our attention back within. That is how we give ourselves wholly to him. In the first sentence of the 13th paragraph of Nana, Bhagavan defines what he means, or what surrender really is. He says, giving not even the slightest room to the rising of any thought other than Atma-chintana. Atma-chintana literally means thought of oneself. It implies self-attentiveness. So not giving room to rising of any thought other than self-attentiveness, being as Atmanishtaparan is giving oneself to God. Atmanishtaparan means being as we actually are. So, the Atmanishtaparan means one who is abiding as Atma. In other words, one who is being as they actually are. So being such a one who is being as they are, how to be as we actually are? By being so keenly self-attentive that we thereby give no room to the rising of any other thought. So what Bhagavan makes clear there is that our surrender to God, giving ourselves to God, can be complete only by means of self-investigation. So our love now is imperfect, but we need to cultivate that love by the practice of Atma-vichara, self-investigation. The more we practice self-investigation, the more we are nourishing that love. Like he has sown a seed in our heart, he is taking care of that seed. He will make sure it flourishes, but we need to cooperate with him. And how we cooperate with him is by holding on to self-attentiveness.
My question is, as long we don't get to that point, right, of self-awareness,
yes,
completely, and this love for him rises, and maybe it's in the form of his picture, of his teaching, of this image in our mind.
yeah.
Is it better for us to quiet that love and like to be like, no, we don't want to think that because this is reality, this is whatever, or no, we should praise him for what it is and ask him for his grace to be even more in us, but that's him anyways. Is that the answer? Is that also
that is Bhagavan.
Is that from him? Is this love what we have for his form until we get to the self-investigation?
Love
that
for
also
his
from him, or that's not.
Love for his form is the way to cultivate the love so it becomes so strong that we become willing to surrender to him. Bhagavan makes this very, very clear in Arunachala Stuti Panchakam.
Right.
In the 5 hymns to Arunachala, you can see how much love Bhagavan has for the form of Arunachala. But he's repeatedly emphasizing that what appears outwardly in the form of Arunachala is what is always shining in the heart. So he's never detaching that external form from the inner reality that it actually is. So it's our own self that appears outwardly in the form of Arunachala and in the form of Bhagavan. in the human form of Bhagavan and in the hill form of Arunachala. Both are our own reality. As he says in the fourth verse of Uludunapadu, if oneself is a form, the world and God will be likewise. That is, so long as we experience ourselves as a form, we cannot conceive of God as formless. Whatever idea we have of God is an idea. Ideas are mental forms.
Right.
So that's why he makes it very clear in Arunachala particularly in the third verse, and also in the third verse mainly, he says trying to meditate on your form as formless is like wandering over the world trying to see the sky. That is, we cannot know him as formless so long as we know ourselves as formless. In order to know him as formless, we need to know ourselves as formless. So in the next sentence he says, but when one thinks without thinking of your form, one melts like a salt doll in the ocean. One melts in you like a salt doll in the ocean. Thinking without thinking of your form means being self-attentive. Because that's his real form. That's his Swarupa. But that doesn't mean Bhagavan isn't rejecting this form. He said, when I approach you, thinking of you as a form, you stand as a hill on earth.
Right.
So unfortunate, but one of the later questions I was going to answer was a question about this, about why Bhagavan worships Arunachala. That is, unfortunately, many of us from this, who come from a Judeo-Christian or Islamic background, that is these Semitic, three Semitic religions, they have this idea that idol worship is somehow a bad thing. You shouldn't. Thou shalt not worship anyone is equal to God, whatever it is. So this because there's a fundament, they've not understood what idol worship is. When you worship an idol, you're worshiping that idol as God. That doesn't mean you're limiting God to that idol. Because God is unlimited, because God is infinite, how can we worship the infinite? We cannot even conceive of the infinite. Whatever we talk of the infinite, we've got a concept of the infinite, but that concept is not the infinite. We cannot know the infinite until we know ourselves as infinite. So we understand God is infinite, but because we know it's impossible for us to know that infinite as it is, at least in our present state, so we worship God in a form. We worship that form as if that is God. And there's no wrong in doing so. Like Bhagavan has made it very clear, he is not that body. He even says in one place, the worst and vilest of sinners are those who fail to understand that though the Guru appears in human form, he's actually that formless space of pure awareness. So Bhagavan made it clear what he actually is that formless space of pure awareness. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be devoted to his form, because we are so devoted to this form. Once a Muslim came to Bhagavan and said to Bhagavan, Bhagavan, isn't it wrong to worship idols? Bhagavan said, before criticizing idol worship, first you should give up idol worship yourself. And he said, oh no, Bhagavan, I'm a Muslim, I never worship idols. Then Bhagavan said, what are you doing every day? You get up, you give this body a bath, you put on nice clean clothes, you offer food to it. You're worshipping this body as yourself. What are they doing in the temple? They give the idol an abhishekam, they put nice clean clothes on it, they put garlands, and they offer food. Just like you're treating your body, they treat that idol as God. So when we are worshipping this this body idol as ourself, why not worship another idol as God? It is appropriate. It's a part of the process. It's not the end in itself. That is, it's very clear God is beyond all forms, but it's a part of the process that is having an external form. Because if we could turn our mind within and remain immersed in self-attentiveness, no external form would be necessary.
Right.
But we're not able to hold on to that self-attentiveness. So when our mind comes out, it's appropriate to be devoted to an external form, considering that
Thank you very
external
much.
form to be God. Just like we consider Bhagavan to be God. When I say Bhagavan, but of course Bhagavan is God. Bhagavan means God. But we consider that body to be Bhagavan. Just like that, we consider the idol in the temple or Arunachal, we consider that to be God.
Very clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, y'all, for bringing your friend with you to our little satsang here.
For getting me close to Bhagavan.
We're, honey, you can't be not
we cannot get close to Bhagavan. Bhagavan is closer than the closest. He's our own reality.
He's our reality, right? Thank you.
We are just, by his grace, we are slowly becoming aware of how close he is.
Amen. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you both. Did you have something else, Yana?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Of course you are. Thank you. And looks like we're not going to have time for all of our hands. So if we can't get to you, please, you might take note of what you have in mind for to present to Michael next time, but stay with us. Next in line is Venkata.
Ramani.
Oh, yes, thank you. Venkata, can you come in?
Thank you for taking my call. The question I had was, did Maharishi ever talk about the importance of a guru?
Yes.
And if he did, I'm reminded of the occasion where B.V. Narasimha Swamiji wrote the book called Self-Realization. And when he wrote that book and presented it to Maharishi, Maharishi said, it's a very well-written book. And B.V. Narasimha Swamiji says, well, but I am not self-realized. And then Maharishi says, that's because your guru is somewhere up north. And so that's when B.V. Narasimha Swamiji moves to the north and goes to Shirdi and finds Baba and all that. So has he ever talked anywhere about the importance of a guru and the right guru?
I don't know how to, I know that B.V. Narasimha Swami, after writing Self-Realization, he went and became a devotee of Shirdi Sai Baba, and he started some organization, spread the name of Shirdi Sai Baba all over India. Whether what you say Bhagavan said, I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, the point regarding Guru, Bhagavan made it clear Guru is absolutely necessary. But what Bhagavan taught about the nature of Guru is very different to the general understanding of Guru. In most sampradayas, most traditions, there is a parampara, a lineage of gurus. That is, there's an original guru, and then the original guru appoints a successor, and the successor appoints a successor, and like that, there's a lineage. in Bhagavan's path, there is no such parampara. The reason is because what Bhagavan taught us about Guru is very, very different to the usual understanding of what is Guru. Bhagavan made it clear Guru is not a person. In one place, in Nana, in the first sentence of the 12th paragraph of Nana, he says, Kadavalum Guruvum Unmail Verala. God and Guru are in truth not other. So God alone is the real Guru. No human being can be a Guru. On very rare occasions, God will take on a human form, such as, for example, Bhagavan Krishna or Bhagavan Ramana, in order to give teachings. But the outward form of Guru, Guru is not that outward form. Though Guru appears in that outward form in order to give us these teachings, what Guru actually is our own reality, what is shining in our heart as I. So he also often used to say, God, Guru, and self are one. So Bhagavan is, the reason Bhagavan never appointed any successor is because he is the eternal Guru. Though he was born only in 1879 as Bhagavan Ramana, what took that form of Bhagavan Ramana is God himself, the eternal Guru. So he's none other than Adi Guru Dakshinamurti. He's none other than Arunachala Shiva himself. So his body served a purpose. It was a vehicle for him to give us these teachings and for him to reveal to us the nature of the real Guru. So he is the Guru of all Gurus. He's the supreme Guru. Once we have come to him, no other Guru is necessary. Because Guru, we talk about Guru's grace. Can any person give grace? No, obviously no person can give grace. God alone can bestow grace. So Guru, the real Guru cannot be any, that is, no one other than God can be the real Guru. So we are very fortunate that in our, most of us were born after Bhagavan's lifetime, but in this modern age, God himself appeared in human form as Bhagavan Ramana to play the outward role of Guru, but he is eternally working as Guru within our heart. And all that he says about Arunachala in Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, the 5 hymns to Arunachala, apply equally to him, because he is Arunachala Shiva himself. That is the human form of Arunachala Shiva is Bhagavan Ramana. The hill form of Bhagavan Ramana is Arunachala. So they are one and the same. So everything that all that he's revealed to us about the greatness of the form of Guru, he directly refers to Arunachala. Giriyuruvahye Kirupe Kadale. Oh, not that one, sorry. Kutramutraritane Gunamai Panital Guruvuru Vayale Arunachala. Arunachala, who shine as the form of Guru, destroying my defects completely, bestowing all gunas, all good qualities on me, make me your own. So that is the work of Guru. The work of Guru is to destroy all our defects completely. Destroying defects completely means destroying along with ego, because ego is the root of all defects. It's the first defect. So he says, Kutra Mutru. Mutru means completely. So destroying the defects completely implies destroying ego along with all its defects. A gunamai panita, making a gunam. Guna, guna means good quality, but it means one endowed with all good qualities. The perfect quality is just to be as we actually are. So that's implied. And then he says, al. Al means to take charge of me, take complete control of me, take possession of me. So that is the work of Guru. That cannot be done by any human being. Only God can do that. So Bhagavan Ramana is what appeared in the form of Bhagavan Ramana is God himself in his ultimate role as Guru. Guru is the ultimate role of God. It is said that God, there are Panchakritiyas, the five divine functions, the five functions of God: creation, sustenance, dissolution, tirodhana, that's veiling, and grace. Grace is the final one. That is the work of Guru. Grace is what removes that veil of ignorance. The veil of ignorance is there so long as we want to continue experiencing this creation. When we are tired of all this samsara and we want to escape this samsara, then grace is what removes that veil of ignorance. That is the work of Guru. So Guru is the ultimate role of God. So Bhagavan has revealed so much about Guru. Is that a clear and satisfactory answer to your question?
I think that was very, very clear. Thank you so much, Michael.
Right.
Thank you, Venkata. Chandra Sekaran, can we, it's gonna have to be brief, because we're almost at the end of our session, but if we're not totally complete, could you keep in mind for next time as well?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to ask the question now?
Yes. We've got a few minutes. 3 minutes we have.
So I have a question about the, I think it's the second verse in Upadesh Undya, Vinay Vittai, Vinay Kadal Vitu Mundipara. In that case, it seems like he's saying that the fruit, the experience is the one that becomes the seed. Is that true, or should we take it as the Vinay, the action is the one that becomes the seed?
That is the when we do an action, it has two results. One is the fruit and the other is the seed. The fruit is what we are to experience. So whatever we are experiencing in this lifetime, it is the fruit of our past actions. The fruit of action, it passes away, as he says. In Sanskrit, he says, palamasasvatam. It's impermanent. Why? Because if someone gives you a mango, if you eat the mango, you can't eat it a second time. Once you've eaten it, it's finished. Likewise with the fruit of karmas. When we experience the fruit of any karma, that fruit is finished. But though the fruit is finished, the seed remains. And the seed is the vasanas. The vasanas are what drives us to do action. So that's why he says that as seed, it makes us fall in that great ocean of action. So action is self-perpetuating, because the more we do a certain action, the greater the inclination to do that action again and again and again. And so there's no end to it. So he says, therefore karma does not give liberation. Then in the next verse he says, however, if the action is nishkamya, if it's done without seeking any, without desiring any fruit, but just it's done kartanukakam, it's done for God. That implies done for the love of God. That will purify the mind and show the way to liberation. What will purify the mind is not the action itself, but the love for God with which it's done. That love for God will purify the mind. And the purified mind will be a clarified mind. In that clarified mind, it will understand that the way to liberation is not doing, but being. That's what he leads on to explain in the subsequent verses.
That's good. Thank you.
Right.
Wow, just in time.
Yes.
Is that complete for you, Chandrasekaran?
Yes, that is. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for your question and your participation. And Michael, I just can't express how your expression of Bhagavan coming forth is so helpful and just and I am just so grateful.
Well, it's all by his grace only. Who am I to say all this? It can, if I say anything of any value, it can only come from him.
Exactly. Your your deliverance of being able to express with such clarity for us is so wonderful.
It's all his grace only.